So Chris, here we go again, Spring Break 2023.
Yeah, what a pleasure. Long in the planning. The weather looked fantastic, and two groups of outriders coming together, Gauteng contingent and then the Western Cape contingent. Couldn't have been better.
And I think if we have a look at the people, there's yourself obviously. So we've got Herman.
Herman on his trusted Bonneville. We've got Ep1, as we call him. Ian on his RT. Crispy Nick joining us on a long outride for the first time on his 1250 GS. And then Steve, yourself on your chariot, your Triumph Tiger 800.
My little beauty.
Yes. And then from the Cape, new friends, Saul and Arthur joining us, invited along by Colin. What a pleasure to meet and share time with them on the road. Arthur on the GS, and then Saul on a fantastic, beautiful little RS BMW. Granville and Haydar on their RT cruisers. Wonderful to get everyone together on this trip.
Did we mention Colin was on a Honda?
I've forgotten Colin. Colin is on the Goldwing, and there's a lot that went into that Goldwing, and
we'll talk about that later. But let's just say thank goodness he had those jumper cables.
Well, thank goodness he bought that Goldwing. The Joburg contingent, if I can call them that, was broken into two groups. There are four of us that trailered our bikes from Johannesburg to Graafreinet. And then Herman, he did a solo, leaving a day before on the Sunday and making his way to Kimberley, and then from Kimberley dropping down to meet us on Monday the 4th of September at Graafreinet, where we overnighted at the Drosdaya Hotel. From Graafreinet on day 2, the journey took us on the N9, going past Aberdeen to Willowmore. And then between Willowmore and Uniondale, off the N9, we took the R341, a beautiful route to De Rust. And from De Rust, we made our way via Meyringspoort onto the R407 to Prince Albert. Now, on that particular day, Granville and Haydar came from George to Oudtshoorn via Meyringspoort and met us at Prince Albert. And then Colin, Saul and Arthur made their way from Cape Town to Prince Albert. So that was the get together for the joint start of the trip. From Prince Albert, on the morning of the third day, we then had two options for those that wanted to do gravel, to cross over via the R328. Swartberg Pass, the notorious Swartberg Pass to Oudtshoorn, and then the alternative road for those that wanted to do tar was to go backtrack on the R407 through Meyringspoort, and we met at Oudtshoorn. So here we are busy loading bikes, getting things ready. This is in front of Steve's abode in Dainfern Ridge.
And I must tell you, this is about the 15th bike you've loaded on this trip, I think.
Throughout that week, I'd been loading and unloading bikes, and it was such a pleasure, doing the final loading with you here on the day before we left.
And there we've got little Mira doing the mandatory checking to see the wheel bearings are good and we've got enough tread on the tyres.
Yeah, we have made mistakes before, and she's aware of that.
And this is in Bloemfontein, I think, Chris.
Yes, this looks like the one stop in Bloem. We had to spend a bit of time on the road there filling up. There was an incident on the road, unfortunately, after the Kroonwal Plaza, where Nick and Ian were involved in an accident. A chap did a U-turn on the highway, and due to being alert and good car control, there wasn't very serious damage done.
And then we got to Graafreinet, which is really the sort of homing pigeon for us. From Graafreinet, the next morning, we had another little problem with Ian's bike. So, Ian, he had some drama on this trip, I think.
We offloaded the night before. We stayed over at the beautiful Drosdaya Hotel, and in the morning, as we were about to leave, Ian complained about the heavy dew and that there was water under his bike. Well, unfortunately, that was a leaking radiator. This is a beautiful road. The wind was blowing a bit. I think Herman could expand on that quite a bit. He was riding at about a 30-degree angle and couldn't believe how the bonnie was being shaken around. And we put our heads together, and it's probably just a weight thing. It's a lighter bike, and Herman isn't the heaviest of our crowd. So, lots of pummeling by the wind there. But still, look at the clouds, look at the blue sky, look at the terrain. We've been down that road, the N9, quite a few times, and this is probably as beautiful as I've ever seen it.
Yeah, and you might have seen that Hermie stopped to put on a jersey. He was feeling a little nippy.
Sjoe, mevrou, nou bederf jy ons, jong. Jy begin nou weer nie dieselfde wees hier nou nie. Melk
Look at the size of this carrot cake. This is lunch.
Enjoy.
Done.
Wait until we get to lunch pots. Lazy lizard with all those pies.
We're gonna look like lazy lizards
And
when we
then
get out.
they've got a special dinner for us at just near Willowmore, a little farm stall next to the road. Driven past it before, went in. We were pleasantly surprised. I mean, it was fully stocked with all sorts of artifacts, caps. You guys actually bought some peaks there. And then the friendliest of people with beautiful carrot cake. Look at that slice of carrot cake in front of Herman. And then, yes, what's this, Steve?
This is my special sticker. You have to have a special sticker, and you see it says Don Tre Capelli.
Yes.
Which is Italian for me, because my second name is Donald, and my Trehe translation literally is Tre Capelli.
3 hairs.
3 hairs.
Okay, well, those were the good old days, Steve. I don't even see 3.
No, there's nothing.
This is at Willowmore. Here we had to make a call. That's where we helped Ian just fill up his reservoir. And now we're dropping south of Willowmore, heading towards Uniondale. But just before Uniondale, there's the R341 that we're going to be turning off to De Rust. About 78 kilometers of very, very beautiful countryside. You may see all the flowers, the white flowers next to the road. Now this is traditionally arid areas, but because of the good rain that the Western Cape has had this season, there were flowers everywhere. I mean, throughout this trip, in the most remote areas, towards the Tankwa Karoo, we saw flowers.
And this is that turning you were talking about.
Yes, this is now turning onto the R341 to the right, towards De Rust. This is where Ian went straight on down to Oudtshoorn. He had about 132 kilometers to go to be helped, and we sent him on his way with best speed because he had to get there. And
to George.
Not to Oudtshoorn, to George.
Yeah.
I beg your pardon. And this is the essence of this beautiful road, this beautiful blue sky, the contrast between clean tar, no potholes, blue sky, and green vegetation and flowers.
And if I may say, Chris, that stop there was mandatory because we had to get our geology lesson. And there was a special rock formation just on the right-hand side of the road there that Chris eloquently told us all about.
Yeah, I know. We're just surrounded by so many geological stories throughout this trip. One's just got to know what your surrounding areas are up to, or have been up to, if I can say it like that. But this road, the R341, the link road between Willowmore and De Rust, one of the link roads. There's of course the R407, which is predominantly a gravel road, but from a tar road point of view, this was superb. Highly recommend this road to any biker. It's just very beautiful. Yeah, we nearing De Rust, in fact, the little village of De Rust, a couple of 100 meters off the junction there. And there's a beautiful coffee shop as you enter De Rust, right on the corner. A little town of quite significance, a retirement village of choice for a lot of people, specifically from Gauteng, we found out. The local little coffee shops also run by ex-Gauteng people.
What's the guy's name that runs the coffee?
Man, I forgot his name. I think I can't remember his name now, but...
And he remembered us from our last trip.
And he must have so many visiting bikers there, but such a bike-friendly coffee shop. Parking, designated parking for us. And then the fascinating story about the location there is right next to the coffee shop is a house that we are told belonged to Langenhoven. And Langenhoven, he was the composer and the author of Die Stem, the old South African national anthem. And he used to come up from the coastal area, spend his weekends there, and was amazed with the blueness and the richness of the cliffs and the sky. And hence, uit die blauw van onze hemel, uit die diepte van ons see, he came from the coast, and he was in this beautiful area, just as it does to us, was mesmerized in.
And I must say that this is probably my favorite road in the country.
Where are we now, Steve?
This is called Meyringspoort.
That's it, the famous Meyringspoort. Eh?
I mean, if you look at the formations and everything here, it's incredible. And I can't do it enough. I can't do it enough.
Stephen, I mean the smoothness of this road, the condition of this road, the little alcoves where you can pull off. They paved, they gardened. There's individuals looking after it. This is their job. The beauty and the serenity. I would rate this as probably our most beautiful tar road in the country.
I think so.
And it's up there with the best in the world. Yes, one of those areas, little rest areas on Meyringspoort. Now, Meyringspoort is 22 kilometers long, but it feels like a breeze. Before you know it, you've gone through it. But if you've got time, it's to stop over and just breathe this air and absorb the beauty. These are little gardens. There will be 2 permanent employees looking after the gardens. The toilets are clean. There's fresh toilet paper.
And Chris, I wanted to
water.
Just look at this picture. I mean, just look at the proportion. I think that's Hermie there in relation to the rock formations.
Exactly. Look at the scale. It's totally majestic. And we went through it on such a beautiful day. The water is clean. The rivers are running. There's greenery everywhere, and then these beautiful crossings of the rivers, and surrounded by fold mountains of the Cape Supergroup, sandstones, quartzites, occasional volcanics, dikes cutting through them, and sills and fault plains. Very beautiful, yeah.
And there you can see Chris is in his element.
It's just this is what the creation is all about. It's just so beautiful, and to share this with fellow bikers, that must be the pinnacle of biking for me.
Me too. Me too. And look at that overhang.
It's unbelievable. I mean, it's a shadow cast over the road, just to give you a scale of it, you know. And if you think about the poort, why is it there? You know, it's an erosion pattern along fault plains that crisscrossed the mountain range of the Swartberg Mountains. Now, these Swartberg Mountains are majestic. I mean, they from Willowmore in the east, and they go 270 kilometers towards Swellendam. You know, it's a massive, massive range of mountains. And the poort was obviously, it also Thomas Baines had an influence there, and it was upgraded to what we have today. But the people of before, in the 1800s, used this as a passageway. It was the passageway. There is also often found in this poort as well a toll house. Yes. Where they collected toll.
Even in those days they had tolls.
Wherever there was a passage, there were the toll gates, the toll homes, and the people would be trekking through the tradesmen with their wagons. We're talking about the 1800s, late 1800s, and yeah, we see it in current form, in pristine form. Now, one must also know that when the big rains come, this could be a dangerous passage, but yeah.
Well, they've had quite a lot of washaways through this, because the water's obviously funneled through this poort.
It's got nowhere else to go, you know.
You know, the river just swells up.
Yeah.
But what amazes me is it doesn't take them long, and they've sorted it out, cleaned it up, and it looks pristine again.
It's hardly ever closed.
Yeah.
Yeah, we saw it in such greenery, you know, Steve, after the rainy season that they've had. You could see on the sides of the cliffs there were aloes in full flower. There were reds amongst the other coloured flowers. It was absolutely beautiful. And then the contrasting colours of the sun, the late afternoon sun on these quartzite formations. That's an example, you know, the orange colours that come through as the sun reflects off this beautiful, off the cliffs of this poort. It's beautiful. It's.
And I think we're getting to the end of the poort.
Yeah, I would guess the poort is round about 22 kilometers, give or take a couple long. So it's a highly recommended route for anybody that's in that area. You know, you've got to go and have a look at. As we exit Meyringspoort to the north, the top end of the poort, you turn onto the R407, which then takes you to Prince Albert, a beautiful road as well. And here we are at The famous
The
stopover.
famous stopover.
The lazy lizard.
The-
It's got good memories and will continue to make good memories.
I have no doubt.
Famous for what, Steve?
You can have the most incredible paninis. You
Yeah.
can have pies. Pies come with special gravy and chips, and it's unbelievable.
Oh, look, the pies there are just out of this world, and the service is great. You know, it's such a beautiful place to go to.
Okay, Chris, so this is actually the next morning, isn't it?
Yeah, this is after overnighting at the Swartberg Hotel that you can see there in the background. Also quite legendary. It's got all sorts of ghosts, they tell us, and there's history about it. A beautifully old hotel, kept pristine, been renovated over the years, and such a landmark for the area. Good service. We had very good dining in their dining room. They set tables for us there. It was an a la carte menu. Fantastic service.
And that's where we met up.
Yes, this is where the rest of our group from Cape Town,
Yeah.
Saul, Arthur and Colin joined us, and Granville and Haydar from George. So this was the full contingent of 10 outriders at Swartberg, overnighting and then getting ready for the next day's trip.
So now the big adventure starts.
Yeah, well, the morning started with Herman and Nick saying that they wanted to go and scout before breakfast, you know, just to have a look at this road. And we said to them they could, but that we'd highly recommend it. And I'm so glad that they actually took up this challenge, because it's for me, from a biking point of view, it's one of those life-changing things. You know, you go over Swartberg Pass, you literally conquer it. Not that that's the intent, but you feel like you've conquered something in yourself rather than the mountain. It is beautiful.
So this is really the entrance. It's a couple of k's long to get to where we, excuse me, really start going over the pass.
Yeah, it's a gentle rise, and it builds up the excitement and the anticipation, because as you near this formidable mountain range, you start realizing what the scale of this is. You know, you're diminutive. You're like an ant, and you've got this lovely gravel pass built by Thomas Baines in 1888. This was his last pass. He's famous for so many passes in this country, for unlocking various parts of the country. And here we go. Now you can see we're off that big wide road, and this is the real McCoy. Yeah, the pass really starts. You and I had done it once before, but from the southern side, so it was nice doing it from the inland side.
Agreed. And here's that famous stop-off. Now, I need to explain very quickly that Chris and I have a tradition. When we do a pass and there is clear mountain water to drink, we have to have a taste.
So it's got to be like that. You've got to drink the water from the various sources, you know, and this is definitely one of them. It's the Eerste Rivier,
Yeah.
origin in the Swartberg Mountains. Well, how beautiful is that?
And there's Chris visiting that river for a taste.
and just fold it, and this
And
rock.
it's interesting how it goes like an arrow.
Oh
You know,
yeah,
up,
so,
down,
yes,
up.
so that bend in like that, that's called a syncline, and when it bends out like that, it's an anticline syncline. Here it is, you're sitting here in the middle of that fold belt. You're sitting on the axis of the main thrust, and these quartzites are vertical. Look at them, they're vertical. They all used to be planar and flat. So I want a group photo of you standing against this rock, please. I'm going to make a lot of demands of you. So get used to it.
And what a beautiful picture of the lads. We all look a little sun-tanned, sun-kissed is the word, I think.
Yes, and full of anticipation. And there we now sit on the ascent to the summit from the northern side of the mountain.
Yeah.
Beautiful shadows here and there. Bear in mind, this is mid-morning.
Yeah.
It's about 10 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
Quite surprised that everything is in as good a condition as it is, because there has been a lot of rain in the Western Cape. Here's Nick on the GS in front of you, Steve. A lot of care was taken, careful riding, and very happy to say that no bike was dropped on this trip.
At this point, Chris, you can see it's really starting to get quite steep. It doesn't quite show it on the GoPro, as steep as it really is. But when we get to the top, we'll look back down and show how
and see what it is. Look, the steepest of the past, if memory serves me correctly, is a gradient of about 1 in 5, and that's substantial. For reference sake, that Harry Smith van Reenen's pass is a 1 in 12 gradient at its steepest. Signature stuff here is Thomas Baines and how he packed the dry stones to build up his road, built by labourers, teams of up to say 600 men. It will take them 2 to 4 years to finish a pass like this, and lives were lost in building these passes. People were buried next to the roads here. And then also what he had right is the camber of the road is always to the inside of the mountain, and there he provided for the water runoff so as not to flow over the road, and the water would pass underneath the road via culverts that he built in stone. And that's why to this day these roads are not eroded.
Sure. Unreal how advanced he was. And I mean, how many passes did he actually build in South Africa?
It's arguable, but 26 to 29, the figure varies in terms of what you read. These are the passes that he built. He had such an influence, died in his 60s, I think he was 63, had 13 children, I believe, so...
I know what he did on his days off.
but he must have been very good at it, because he wasn't home very often.
No.
Here you can get an idea, Steve, of how the gradient is steepening. We just passed a sign saying Eerste Rivier, and that was the origin of the river that we drank water from at the bottom. It's a little trickle, starts there in a little kloof in the side of the mountain, a little fountain. And on the left you can see the dry packed stone. We will get some better views of it a bit later. It's such a pleasure, to see the bikes like this and to ride with friends. The beauty is always there, but to share the beauty that's the special part.
I'll tell you what made me nervous here, Chris, is every now and again you can see that the sidewall is not there anymore. And if you go over the edge there, it's a long way down.
No, it drops forever, and the inside passage where the water now runs is also quite gnarly, so you've got to pick your route. You've got to ride the clean gravel, and that's the only way. And then of course it's a narrow road, so invariably there will be traffic coming from the opposite direction, cars, and you've got to look out for them way in advance. Find spots to pull over. You don't want to meet someone suddenly around a blind corner, and this pass is just made out of blind corners. You see the folded mountains in the background. It's just the blue sky and the contrast, it's majestic.
Yeah, that's true. Look at that sky.
Steve, you were at the back of the group here, holding up the rear, and I was in front, and this is Nick in front of you, and then Herman ahead of him. And look how beautifully Nick's taking this big bike around these very twisty and gutted road in places, with gravel all over the show. Very impressed with him and Herman and how they managed their bikes up this pass. We also got to a spot, if I remember correctly, I was at the top looking back, and Herman turned around And I was wondering what he'd lost on the route, and then afterwards he explained that his bike wouldn't start, and then he had to run start it down the pass. You were with him, eh?
Yeah, this was the start of Hermes' problems with the electrics on the trunk.
And so we later found out. Fortunately, the main problem didn't hit on this mountain.
Well, I think where we were lucky, there must have been just enough power in the battery to run the ignition, but not enough to start it.
Yes, very fortunate, because it's remote thing.
Yeah, you don't want to ask a mechanic to come, where are you?
Yeah, and
well...
also Colin with his Goldwing, it might have been a struggle to come and help us here. Here you can see the stone-packed walls. It's a work of art, and it's a signature of Thomas Baines, and if ever you're in doubt whether Baines had a hand in where you are, just look out for these dry-packed stone walls. It's his signature.
Well, if you think about it, he pretty much opened the interior of the country, for development, because before this, there was very little way of getting over.
Well, the coastal area was cut off from the Klein Karoo, and there was no trade. Villages and settlements like Prince Albert and others, Linesburg, they were isolated.
Yeah. And there's the Bonneville.
Can you believe the Bonnie? Huh? What a beautiful shot, eh? Almost at the summit. Signature stuff. Yeah, we now at the summit. Smiles all around. You can see bikes parked in the background. What an achievement. Blue sky.
The interesting thing here, Chris, is look at where we've come from. Okay, It's not quite so dramatic in this pic, but look at that.
I remember taking Nick to the edge of the road there, and this is at the summit, and he looked at me and he said, this can't be. I could not have come from down there. I said, well, Nick, you are. You're standing next to me. But it is an amazing achievement.
And I think we've got one better photograph coming up where it really shows you the drop-off.
We need to get that pic.
I think it's coming. Yeah. We'll see it in a minute or two.
It's once again, you look at this pass, it's there's that pic.
There's that pic.
You see stone wall, and then at the bottom, right at the bottom, you see the snaking dirt road where you've come from. This really emphasizes the great.
This got Crispy going. He didn't want to look at.
This is where Nick didn't quite want to look over the edge, I think. Just beautiful. The pass is 28 kilometers long. If you do it at reasonable speed on the bike, you're looking about an hour and a half, probably closer to an hour and a half, with some stops and gentle riding. It's really worthwhile.
And here we've crested, and we're going down the other side of the pass now.
In one piece. Look at the skyline, guys. Now you see the valley below. You're looking towards Oudtshoorn there in the distance, and you're right at the top of the pass. And at the bottom is just beautiful farms wherever you look. I'm just amazed, Steve. Your little Triumph on a gravel road pass, and how smooth this bike is. If you look, the picture is not. There's hardly any movement. You see some movement on your fairing there.
Now look, this is very special little machine.
It hums, man.
Yeah, it's I call it my little Swiss sewing machine, because it's got that triple motor. And it's got a different sound to everything else if you listen to it. And it's been so good to me. I've taken it on some fairly rough stuff, not single track, but fairly rough roads. And it's I think the advantage was that you said to me, Steve, go and put some of these tires on.
These Pirelli
STR, and what a difference it made. I mean,
absolutely. I did the same on the 850, and the comfort and control on the gravel was extraordinary.
And in front of me here is Hermie, and he wanted to pull over and talk to me. And And I couldn't quite work out exactly what the problem was until he told me, Steve, I've got no brakes.
Hey.
And he said he doesn't understand why not. I said, it's because you've been riding that back brake and it's the fluid's boiled.
Yeah.
So you lose your brakes. So I said, just use the front brakes a little bit going down now. It's not the end of these roads are not that bad. And the brake will come back. Don't worry. And then he was comfortable after that. So it took a little while.
And so it did, Steve. I remember when you told us the story at the bottom of the pass, and Herman confirmed that eventually it did come back. But it's a scary moment, and Herman did absolutely the right thing just to slow the moment down, to mention it to you, and rather than just keep going and running into trouble. Some wise decisions taken there. It just shows you, that every time you engage a trip like this, or a pass like this, or a route like this, you learn more than the time before. Not all bikes are the same. The weight is different. How you use brakes. There's a lesson in it for all of us,
And the lesson was this guy coming from he's not with us.
We let him go. I know outriders sometimes like to chase people, but there's a time and place for everything, and this wasn't it.